For best experience, please silence all cell phones and make sure to not take any pictures using the flash. Thank you very much. We do not like Barry Allen here. Now, for a reading of the tale of the Great Cane War, as told by Willy, published by Muck Books. Contributors were Ant, Nathan, Jacob II, Fox, and Willy. Thank you all for your help and insight. Forward. I was a largely neutral observer in the conflict, and here I hope to best represent the conflict in a fair light for all parties involved, and to the best of my ability. Share the events as they happened. Thank you. Copying or redistributing the following without the explicit permission of the author is strictly prohibited. Cost of the book is whatever you are willing to pay. Please stop by after the reading to purchase this book. In a time before the first stalks of cane had sprouted from the earth, a man by the name of Nugget Seeker, in parentheses Nugget, bound together with the average fox, in parentheses Fox, and Antosaurus, parentheses Ant, to form a group called the Fwynar. They followed in the steps of the great Vikings of old, and acted out of scoundrel tendencies. From the start they made many enemies by performing raids on players, out of a desire to appease the god Fwyn, who had a vendetta against Ralka, the god of the harvest, who would destroy farms and crops across the lands. One late night, whilst a number of players were online, one individual was granted a single piece of sugarcane. Only one knew who was granted that item. That person was myself. But I resolved to keep this under wraps until it was made known. This piece of cane was placed in a chest out in the Savannah Hills and left by its owner until another day. Some say he didn't realize the significance held by that single piece of cane. As long as the cane was kept out of the hands of the players, the progress of advancement would be all but halted. I say all but. There was one who had found a way to progress villages allowed one to bypass and the need for a cane. And a village, in fact, rested to the south, but Speeder 1662, in parentheses Speeder, had foreseen the bleak oversaturation of iron that could off the villagers, and thus took it upon himself to rid the world of not just the men, but the women and children too. And Vortex X X in parentheses Jacob II worked tirelessly to obtain and cultivate enough villager life to obtain the necessary pieces to obtain enchanting. The Fwynar had continued their escapades throughout the land, arousing the anger of nearly every player imaginable. Little seemed sacred to them. However, it should be noted that they spread the crops of the farm cultivated by Speeder, as well as staying a hand a few times in stealing or pillaging from others, but those times seemed few and far between. A new member had joined their ranks. Humans exists. In parentheses, humans. Had joined, and together with Fox, they conducted numerous raids, stealing items, breaking crops, and killing livestock. On one such occasion, they stumbled across Jacob II's stash, where his gear and villagers were stored. One fateful day, while Fox was out looking for a nice place to put a house for his friend, he stumbled upon a small house in the savannah. As most of us would do, he opened the chest inside. There was nothing of much significance, only basic gear, except for a single piece of sugarcane. This was the house of Great Scott, in parentheses, Scott, the one individual who was randomly selected to receive the cane. Realizing the significance of this, Fox took the item back to his base. He grew the chain into 2 pieces. He returned 1 piece of cane to the house, along with a few diamonds. Fox, however, upon reflection, thought of the fallout of allowing the cane to get into the hands of the public. Everyone would have to grind for enchants to stay relevant, pouring time and effort into getting the best possible enchants on their gear. So Fox returned to Scott's house and retrieved the cane he had previously returned. At this point, the Fonar were quite disjointed. Rumors of members conspiring with outsiders and the leader, Nugget, not being aware of all the happenings and raids. But one member in particular, Ant, was displeased with his standing with the Fonar. Jacob II had taken a particularly large hit with the loss of smithing templates and a good amount of ore. He was particularly unhappy. Initially, he didn't know who had taken his things, so he ventured around the world searching for any sign of where his stuff might be held, and who had it. Not finding anything, late that night he played on a hunch that they had stolen it. He climbed to the top of the mountain keep, where the Fonar were based, and searched thoroughly, digging up floors, until at last he found the stash where they had put their plunder. He retrieved his things, leaving with the knowledge that the Fonar were responsible for stealing his loot. Jacob II began quietly preparing for war. He got his villagers together and started working on improving his gear. However, once the Fonar realizes that he has taken his things back, they return to Jacob II's base, killing his villagers. Jacob II was stirred to action. He sought out Ant, with whom he was friends, whom he knew was involved with the Fonar. He told him of what had happened, and how he planned to get back at the Fonar, so Ant could stand clear and not get caught in the crossfire. Ant returned to the mountaintop keep. Unknown to him, he was watched by Fox and Human, but Fox had made a grave mistake. He had left the entrance to their secret room uncovered. Ant entered, finding a space that looked as though it was made for farming sugar cane. However, it had all been removed. He ventured further into the secret hold and found an enchanting setup. It was then that he found himself confronted by Fox and Human. They took him to a cave now called the Cave of Machpelah. At this time, the Fonar had taken it in order to use as a meeting place. They demanded that Ant sign a document disclosing that he would not share his findings. As is now plain, Ant could tell that they had obtained the sugarcane. He could not know at this time that they had stolen it from Ant's cousin Scott, but even still it did not sit right with Ant. He resisted signing the document, misspelling his name and attempting to burn the document, but they meant business. Finally, he signed his name below the line. It was around this point that Nathan W., in parentheses, Nathan, happened upon the meeting. Another friend of Ant's, who had, unbeknownst to the Fonar, had claimed the land that the cave sat under. However, he did not overhear what was going on, and so he was let on his way. However, Fox shot an arrow at Nathan, and a skirmish broke out in which Human was almost killed by lava. After escaping, Ant cryptically shared pieces of his encounter with Nathan, taking great pains not to violate the contract, but Nathan assured him it should not be legally binding as it was under duress, as well as the fact that he did not sign where indicated. So Ant told him everything. They went on to share it with Jacob II, and then Lightning_Man, in parentheses Willy. It was in these conversions that it was revealed that the cane had been taken from Great Scott. This only served to kindle the flames, and there was discussion of taking action, and battle plans started to formulate. Nathan was once again at his base above the cave. Since the last encounter, he had seen the Fonar one other time under his home, but this time he went to investigate. He found a large room that was under construction. The members of the Fonar found Nathan. They claimed that the room was for potion production in order to conceal its true purpose as a sugarcane growery. Nathan was not convinced, but things threatened to get violent when Nathan told them he had already claimed the mountain. Just before they could kick him out, however, Jacob II showed up, taking Nathan's side. With the sudden and unexpected oppositions, Fox made the call to concede, and he and Human left the cave. Jacob II, Nathan, Ant, and Link Lin came together to form the Patriarchs. They then named the cave after them, calling it the Cave of the Muck. Then came the day of the battle. Nathan was near the mountain keep, chopping trees. However, he came too close for the liking of the Fonar. They confronted him and demanded that he leave. Nathan resisted. There was back and forth. At one point, Nathan built a symbol of peace that the others may recognize as a symbol of a 19th century German regime, which they destroyed. Eventually, Nugget punched him. He fell several blocks down the side of a mountain. The two traded blows, drawing their swords. Nugget knocked Nathan further down the mountain, killing him. At this point, the Fonar knew what was coming, and they began to prepare for battle. Down below, the Patriarchs rallied and prepared for battle. Nathan went up first to retrieve his things. After he arrived, he did his best to stall, talking to the Fonar and waiting for backup to arrive. As the Fonar geared up, they tried to forestall the coming conflict through the dialogue with Nathan, but at this point it was already set in motion. It was not long before Link Lin and Ant arrived at the mountaintop. Tensions rose. The Patriarchs demanded to be given the sugarcane, but the Fonar denied having any. The leader of the Fonar, Nugget, was not aware of how they acquired the cane, but he certainly did not like what was going on and denied having possession of it. He certainly did not want to give it up under those conditions, and in fact was resolutely determined not to give in. After heated dispute, Fox made the first move. He started landing crits on Ant after a few seconds of warning. They jumped into the conflict, and they gave the signal. Off, hiding on the side of the mountain, was Jacob II. As soon as he got the signal, he splashed his potions and parayed into the thick of the battle. From then on, it was a bloodbath. Wielding his powerful sword, the Sleeper, Jacob II cut down every one of them. Upon taking the mountain, they fortified their position and trapped the portal. The Fonar did their best to regroup and gear up at Jacob II's base. In response to an offer yield, Nugget cried out, "Never back down, never what?" And his men responded with, "Never surrender!" Their resolve was strong, but the losses were heavy. They killed Jacob II's villagers once again, and Jacob II parayed into his base, killing Fox, and the others fled. Nugget was also quoted saying they had one last encounter as they scrounged from bases across the world, desperately trying to recover, in which they faced Jacob II with nothing but axes and a bucket of lava. They thought for a second they might have him, but as soon as he had a second, he drank a potion and finished them off. Though Nugget's resolve never wavered, that of one of his men, Human, had he secretly messaged the Patriarchs on the mountain and requested a meeting at the Acacia Spring Cafe in order to hand over the cane. Ant and Leekland went down bracing for a trap, while Nathan stayed at the mountain to keep watch for the Fonar's return. It was a genuine call. However, Human handed over the cane and was taken up to the mountain to retrieve his stuff from the Patriarch's stash. While this was going on, however, Nugget and Fox, unaware of this, were still looting and had made their way to Ant's base, where they killed Ant's dear pet, parrots. Seeing the news that Ant's parrots were dead, Ant and Nathan ran down the mountain to Ant's base and ran into Nugget. Nathan, believing Nugget to be hostile, attacked and killed Nugget. Nugget's dog continued to fight after his master's death, and so too was killed. The things were returned to the ashamed Fonar, who then made their way back to their cave base, with the valiant words of their leader still ringing in their heads. "I would rather die standing than live kneeling." They later returned to the mountain keep, where they set the walls and fortifications ablaze. They also burned the gear that had been returned to them, as they felt that they did not deserve it. They watched the walls burn with a sense of satisfaction, that though they had lost, they would go out gloriously and without shame. They are not entirely giving up, but they are instead pushing forward. Fox said, "We got caught up in the scoundrel thing, but I don't think we went about it right. They are going to continue on as a group, but with a new focus and a new outlook. They plan to rebuild on the mountain top, but for a time some have retreated to the nether. But now there is Cain in the world, for better or for worse. It was hurriedly taken to a safe place to grow, and since has been given to every player on the server, many of which have then gone and hidden stashes across the map, so that never again can one group control all of the sugarcane." And thus was the story of the Cane War. A story riddled with warfare, bloodshed, destruction, action, betrayal, backstabbing, and various other things. But it's a story of victory, friendship, love, honor. This is the story of Minecraft and Mayhem Minus. I made that last part up.